2 months ago, explaining what happened to some characters in the series. I tried as much as possible to collect characters that you guys suggested to me in the part 1. So in today's video, I'll be explaining what happened to these characters: Percy, Oliver, Karkaroff, George, and Buckbeak. Let's start with Percy Weasley. For many years, Percy was seen as the rather pompous but ultimately harmless older brother of Ron, Fred, and George. But as Voldemort started to take power, Percy ended up siding with his beloved Ministry over his own family. Percy wasn't a bad person and didn't have any desire to join the dark side. He was just easily impressed by power and status. He came from a family who weren't particularly well off and had hand-me-downs throughout his life. During his years at Hogwarts, he was extremely proud of being a prefect and took the role very seriously, enjoying the level of power it gave him over other students, and was always trying to gain praise from his teachers. When he left Hogwarts and got a job at the Ministry of Magic, he openly hero-worshipped his boss, Barty Crouch, and was very keen to get promoted. He took his work seriously, hiding away in his room to finish tasks before the given deadline. It was Percy's promotion to junior assistant to the Ministry that caused a real split between the Weasleys, as Arthur was convinced that he was given the position so the Ministry could spy on the Weasleys. Percy took a huge offense at the suggestion that he was just being used, especially as he had put so much time and effort into getting promoted. He refused to believe his father and gave his loyalty to the Ministry. This resulted in Percy severing all ties with his family, wanting everyone to know that he had nothing to do with them. He packed his bags and left. He moved to London when he was able to get himself a flat. His mother went to London to try to talk to him, but Percy slammed the door in her face. As when Voldemort's return was really revealed, he was ready to hold up his hand and admit to his mistake. He eventually felt that he was guilty of abandoning his family in favor of the Ministry. As a result, Percy joined the Battle of Hogwarts in time of need. Once he found his family, Percy apologized to them. Fred, along with George, who were angry towards him, was the first to forgive him. During the battle, Percy and Fred fought alongside each other. Then an explosion destroyed parts of the corridor they were in and killed Fred. Percy, grief-stricken, refused to leave his brother's body until Harry and Ron helped him move it elsewhere. Full of anger and sadness, Percy stormed back into the battle, charging after deaf ears. Percy was also present when Voldemort announced Harry's supposed death, looking shocked and saddened as he had once again came to consider Harry a friend. Percy then witnessed Harry's final defeat of Lord Voldemort. After the battle, Percy was one of the people who rushed to Harry's side and attempted to hug him. He later sat with his family in silence. The family, while rejoicing the end of the Second Wizarding War, was also devastated over the loss of Fred. Following the end of the war, Percy returned to now reform the Ministry of Magic and became head of the Department of Magical Transportation under Kingsley Shacklebolt. The relationship between him and his family is now as good as it used to be before. Everyone makes mistakes, especially when they're young, and Percy redeemed himself in the end. Percy eventually married a woman named Audrey, and the couple had 2 daughters, Molly and Lucy. On 1st September 2019, he was present on platform 9 3/4, seeing off one of his daughters to the school. Oliver Wood. Oliver attended Hogwarts in 1987. He joined the Gryffindor Quidditch team as a keeper, and even became captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team later. Oliver was known for his determination and skill on the playing field, and his long lectures before practices. The absolute master of an inspirational speech he was. We've seen Oliver in the first movie where he gave Harry his first Quidditch lesson in private, immediately seeing that Harry was a natural flyer on a broomstick. Then the second movie and the third, but after that he disappeared completely. Because in Harry's 3rd year, it was actually the 7th for Oliver, which means his last year at Hogwarts. Oliver was also a firm upholder of the rules. He never allowed any form of cheating or foul play while he was a captain, like when Harry saw a group of Dementors and was tossed from his broom. Cedric Diggory caught the snake, but then offered a rematch. Oliver, knowing Cedric won, legitimately declined. It was a rather noble move from a really upstanding guy. But after leaving the school, Oliver became the keeper for Padmere United reserve team. and I assume he brought the same level of intense ambition to his position there. In the summer of 1984, he attended the Quidditch World Cup, where he saw Harry and introduced him to his parents, and told Harry of his new career. Oliver even showed his loyalty to Hogwarts after he left, when he showed up in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows to defend his old school. Oliver Wood was leading a group of students on broomsticks, guiding them into the battle. Oliver also assisted Neville in carrying the dead bodies of Colin Creevey and others into the Great Hall. Oliver survived the end of the battle, as his name was not mentioned among the fallen 50. Afterwards, he likely continued with his career as a professional Quidditch player. George Weasley. We know that the day of the Battle of Hogwarts was the worst to George. He lost his brother Fred, his twin, and the person who was always on his side. They had plans together and more jokes and pranks to be made. After the Battle of Hogwarts, George never truly got over Fred's death. He eventually married Angelina Johnson, the girl that Fred asked to go with him to the Yellow Ball. George and Angelina eventually named their first child Fred, in love and memory of the twin brother he lost during the final battle. The couple also had a daughter named Roxanne. George continued to run Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, the joke shop that he started with Fred, to great success. His younger brother Ron retired from being an author in the ministry after 2 years and helped him to turn the shop into a real money spinner. Igor Karkaroff. Karkaroff was a student and also later the headmaster of Durmstrang Institute. During the First Wizarding War, he was the Death Eater who served Lord Voldemort. But after being captured and briefly imprisoned in Azkaban, Karkaroff turned in several of his fellow Death Eaters in exchange for his crimes being erased. The first time we saw Karkaroff was in the Goblet of Fire, when the Trials Tournament was held for the first time in many years at Hogwarts School. Karkaroff ventured to Hogwarts to supervise his students and to prepare Durmstrang's champion for the tournament, as well as to serve as one of the 5 judges. The Goblet of Fire was also the last time he was mentioned. After hearing that Voldemort was back following the end of the 3rd test, Karkaroff fled from Hogwarts for his life. Snape admitted that Karkaroff had come to him, concerned about the dark mark on his left arm, a mark Snape also bore as a former Death Eater. The mark had been growing darker throughout the school year, indicating Voldemort's growing strength. Karkaroff feared Voldemort's return because he had betrayed too many of the Dark Lord's servants to be allowed back into the fold. After escaping from banishment, Karkaroff was able to stay alive for a whole year, fleeing to parts unknown. However, Karkaroff was finally tracked down to a shack in the north and killed by Death Eaters. Buckbeak. We all keep wondering what happened to Buckbeak after Sirius' death. Well, a month after his death, Dumbledore told Harry that according to Sirius' will, he was now the legal owner of Buckbeak, as Sirius left everything he owned to Harry. But Harry told Dumbledore that Buckbeak could continue living with Rubeus Hagrid. In order to protect the Hippogriff's identity, Buckbeak was renamed Witherwings at this time. In 1997, Buckbeak joined Harry's duel with Snape across the grounds, attacking Snape and driving him off, thus protecting Harry and showing his loyalty to him. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Buckbeak, along with several Distrolls, were seen attacking Lord Voldemort's giant soldiers. He participated in the battle and survived. After the war, Buckbeak continued living in Hagrid's hat, and he sometimes sneaked into the Forbidden Forest with other Hippogriffs. It's also revealed that the death sentence on him was overturned as part of the wider reforms within the Ministry of Magic. I've made a video 2 months ago explaining how did some characters die, which most of you guys did really like and enjoy. I thought about making a part 2 of the video, but I didn't find more unexplained death to talk about. Instead of that, I'll be explaining in today's video, however, what happened to some Harry Potter characters later, as their fate was unknown, and also not everyone has read the books. Lavender Brown. During her final year at Hogwarts, Lavender joined the second Dumbledore's army to oppose Death Eater control of the school. Like others, she eventually took to hiding in the Room of Requirement and may have been responsible for forming a bathroom with washing facilities. Lavender fought in the Battle of Hogwarts, during which she fell from a balcony and was attacked by the werewolf Fenrir Greyback. Rushing to her aid, Hermione blasted Greyback away from her with a powerful spell, and Professor Trelawney dropped a crystal ball on his head. head. Immediately after the attack, she was seen barely moving. However, it's never confirmed whether she died from falling injuries or maybe blood loss. But those who still don't know whether she actually died or not, well, J.K. Rowling gave us not an answer, but a hint. Lavender Brown's profile in Pottermore doesn't contain the date of her death compared to someone who did, like for example Snape or maybe Fred Weasley. But after all, maybe J.K. Rowling left the decision for us to keep us wondering and exploring theories about whether she's dead or not. Dolores Umbridge. After Voldemort was seen by the authority, Umbridge was suspended following allegations of abuse. We actually hoped this would be the last time we were seeing her. However, despite all of her actions at Hogwarts, Umbridge later returned to the position of Senior Under Secretary at the Ministry, headed by the Minister Rufius Scrimgeour. Following Lord Voldemort's takeover of the Ministry of Magic in 1987, Umbridge oversaw the registration and persecution of Muggle-born witches and wizards. Under the Muggle-born Registration Commission, she conducted trials, subjecting innocent Muggle-borns to the presence of the Mentors and sending them to Azkaban for supposedly stealing magic from real witches and wizards. After Lord Voldemort's death at Harry Potter's hands during the Battle of Hogwarts and the reformation of the Ministry of Magic by Kingsley Shacklebolt, Umbridge was arrested, tried, convicted, and sent to Azkaban for life for her crimes against Muggle-borns. As not all of them survived, that was the fate she deserved after all. Hermione's parents. During the Second Wizarding War, Hermione became Voldemort's specific target, along with Harry and Ron. She knew that this would permanently affect her parents. She decided that the only way she could be sure her parents would be safe was to use a false memory charm on them. Just to get this straight, there was not the Obliviate charm, which erases all of a person's memory without the possibility of returning the memory, which we can say it's similar to go to Australia and live there and had no idea who Hermione was, not even the fact that they ever had a daughter. She did this in order to keep them safe should the Death Eaters come after them. They proceeded to act on their apparent ambition to move and quickly packed up their belongings and left their house. It is possible that the Grangers moved into a house along Australia's coast, which they had been dreaming before their daughter bewitched them. Immediately after the conclusion of the Second Wizarding War, Hermione tracked her parents and returned their memories. It's unknown how long exactly she waited before she did so, but I think she waited quite some time for everything to be in the right place. They, along with Hermione, then later returned to England, and surely Mr. and Mrs. Granger did indeed meet their grandchildren and were involved in their lives.
Let's have a joint.
Gilderoy Lockhart. He was full of extreme arrogance and exceeded vanity, narcissism, and self-obsession. He made outrageous claims and suggestions in times of danger in order to make himself look more important and powerful than he truly was. This behavior finally led him to be stopped in the Chamber of Secrets. Lockhart took Ron's broken wand and attempted to perform a total memory charm on Harry and Ron. The wand, however, backfired, and the charm hit Lockhart instead, blasting him against the rocks and causing him to lose all of his memories, giving him complete amnesia. Lockhart was eventually rescued from the chamber with Dumbledore's pet, Phoenix, Fawkes, along with Ginny and Harry. His departure from the school was met with the joy and celebration of many students and teachers, as he had stopped to be popular at Hogwarts. He then became a permanent resident of St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. For permanent spell damage, Lockhart's many crimes were never actually revealed to the public, probably because Professor Dumbledore felt that Lockhart had already got what he deserved, and decided against making his fate any worse by exposing him to the wizarding world, and see him treated with contempt for the rest of his life for wrongdoings he had no idea he had even committed. Due to this, the ex-professor was allowed to continue his career as an author after a fashion getting someone to help him write the book Who Am I? On Christmas 1995, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny saw Lockhart at St. Mungo's. He had regained his memory to the extent that he could write in cursive and still enjoyed signing autographs. Harry observed Lockhart had not changed much. It is unknown that Gilderoy never got visitors, suggesting that his family was either deceased or did not care for him. However, Lockhart still received fan email, including weekly letters. Though he retained some memories, Lockhart never fully recovered. Fortunately, however, he is known to be happier that way. The Dementors. After the Second Wizarding War, the Ministry of Magic became headed by former Auror Kingsley Shacklebolt, due to the Mentor's actions during the war, allowing Death Eaters to escape back to Voldemort and joining forces with him themselves. And because of the depression and madness their presence caused the prisoners was considered inhuman, Shacklebolt disbanded the Dementors as guards of the wizard prison. The Dementors are very strong and powerful creatures and impossible to be killed, so that's why they couldn't get rid of them easily. But ever since they were removed, Aurors have been guarding the prison, taking turns that a certain number of Aurors are assigned to stand guard before leaving to return to the Feywild, with other Aurors taking their place. Taking turns that a certain number of Aurors are assigned to stand guard before leaving to return to the Feywild, with other Aurors taking their place. It is unknown where they went or what they did after the war, but my guess is they could be sent to some sort of a controlled area far away from human habitation so that they don't unleash upon other wizards and muggles, where they would starve without human emotions to feed on and eventually die. This seems harsh, but I don't see what else could be done if they are to be ministry controlled. If they were not ministry controlled and left free, that would be horrible, as they could easily go to Muggle areas and unleash widespread mess, and the worst part is that would cause a lot of trouble to the Ministry of Magic and the entire world. The Dursleys. The Dursleys lived at 4 Privet Drive in Little Winkin. They were the only close relatives to Harry after his parents' death. Harry did occasionally update them about Voldemort and the Death Eaters because of their family connection to Harry and the danger of Voldemort using them to get to Harry. They were forced to go into hiding for their own safety for a period of time during the height of the Second Wizarding War. During the summer, Petunia, Dudley, and Vernon were placed under the protection of 2 members of the Order of Phoenix. The Dursleys started backing up so they could all live together, despite his mistreatment of Harry. Harry's cousin Dudley Dursley eventually came to regret his cruelty towards Harry, and the two reconciled later in life. This was mostly due to an incident in the summer before Harry's 5th year of schooling that involved him saving Dudley from a Dementor. Dudley's adult life, he got married and became a father of 2. Vernon and Petunia became grandfather and grandmother. It is possible they had a better relationship with Harry, and that they remained in contact. Dudley and Harry remained on Christmas card terms, and Harry sometimes took his children to Dudley so that their children could play together. Their relationship wasn't as strong, but it was a major change from when they grew up. At some point before 2020, Petunia passed away. It was probably Dudley, the one whom informed Harry of his mother's death. It was revealed that she kept the blanket that Harry was brought to her in when he was a baby, which was given back to him after her death.
Studies show that the average millennial thinks about the Harry Potter film franchise at least 6 times every hour. I'd say those are rookie numbers, because what else would you even think about? It's been almost 20 years since the first film premiered, and fans still can't get enough. But did you know that many of the characters and creatures almost look completely different? Some of them are described differently in the books, but others were designed in ways that totally conflict with what we saw on screen. So let's dive in and look at all the designs we almost got for our favorite Harry Potter characters.
I'll be fascinated to hear what you think.
One of the characters that hardcore Potterheads complain about the most is the look of He Who Must Not Be Named.
His name is Voldemort. So yes, you might as well use it.
Pretty sure that if we actually say his name, we get demonetized. Wizard and YouTube don't play. In the movie, he looks pretty cool. He's creepy, pale white, and has those weird nose slits. Fans of the movies were a bit weirded out by his look at first. Needless to say, everyone got used to it over time. Now he's one of the most iconic movie villains ever. If we had to rank him, he's probably sandwiched somewhere between Darth Vader and Sauron. His creepy, pale Snake Man style probably has a lot to do with that. That being said, book fans are still not quite over it. In the books, he's described as even more snake-like in appearance. More importantly, the character is supposed to have crazy red eyes. Maybe the movie people were just afraid he'd look too much like Christopher Lloyd from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, can you blame him?
After tonight, no one will ever again question my power.
Now, this is probably the biggest complaint book fans have about the entire movie series. In the books, Harry's eyes are probably described almost as much as his scar is. He's supposed to have the sloppy dark hair of his father and the emerald green eyes of his mother. It's almost a running joke throughout the series.
You're very like your father. Keep the eyes, of course. We have you on office eyes here.
Every single character who knew Lily Potter seems obsessed with telling him he has his mother's eyes. What's the problem? Well, Daniel Radcliffe has blue eyes. They tried to give him green ones, but he didn't like the contacts. It's also weird that they couldn't have just fixed that with CGI. You're telling me that they could make a CGI troll, green gods, and a living chess set, but blue eyes to green was a little too much? You could do that in Microsoft Paint. Luckily, the actress who plays adult Lily has blue eyes, so no problem, right? Wrong. When Snape gave Harry his memories, we're introduced to the young Lily Potter. This actress has dark eyes. Snape's literal last words that he gave only a few minutes earlier were that Harry had his mom's eyes. What's worse is that she's introduced with a hard close-up on her face. So if there was any doubt about whether or not she had blue eyes, it was cleared up really quickly. After having to deal with detailed crazy Potterheads for years, you'd think they would have known better. You couldn't have cast a blue-eyed actress. The budget for these movies were only about $6 trillion apiece. Mad Eye has one of the weirder looks in the Harry Potter films. He looks like a pirate who's trying too hard to pull off his glass eye. The look grows on you, but fans weren't super fond of it at first. He was supposed to be a lot more scarred up, and his fake eye was supposed to be more natural. Also, some concept art showed him missing a big chunk of his nose. Not everybody can pull off that Red Skull noseless look, so that was probably a good choice. It's a good thing that Brendan Gleeson was pretty perfect as the world's grumpiest Auror.
End of story. Goodbye. The end.
If only we could get a spin-off movie about him taking on evil wizards like the grizzled magic cop he is. Tonks is one of the most beloved minor characters in the series. She's got a lot more style and attitude than most of the other B players do. You might not know that if you watch the movies because she's got about 2 minutes of screen time. She also is lacking a lot of her style from the books. Ideally, she should look like she just stepped out of whatever the Diagon Alley equivalent of Hot Topic is every day. Her hair is supposed to be a lot more vibrant and interesting as well. Her love story with Lupin, her child, and everything else about her character was toned down as well. Honestly, it's almost surprising that they didn't cut her out entirely. It's kind of sad that what could have been one of the most vibrant big-screen characters ended up being one of the most forgettable. Seriously, the actress had a better time in one episode of The Mandalorian than she did in the entire movie franchise. Even her forgettable part in Game of Thrones looked impressive compared to the sparse few seconds she was in the franchise. What's weird is that she's still remembered primarily as Tonks, no matter what else she does. Well, it looks like Tonks is so cool that even a few scenes is enough to make her memorable. The Death Eaters went through a lot of changes over the years. Their first appearance in the film series was not subtle. They had pointed hoods and skull masks. The look was a half step away from looking like it belonged in Django Unchained. The look in the subsequent movies was a big improvement. They wore these cool, personalized bad guy masks. Well, unless they were one of the main baddies. Lucius wasn't big on hiding those golden locks of his. Though I have to wonder who made all of these weird masks. Is there some sort of multiversal bad guy mask designer that makes them for everybody? Does he have pictures of Darth Vader, Bane, and Michael Myers on his wall? The concept art designs actually looked much cooler than both. They looked sort of like if the Eyes Wide Shut masquerade people were having a gothic Alice in Wonderland party. Actually, there's no way that Lucius Malfoy wasn't throwing those parties every single weekend, now that I think about it.
Using Squarespace helped my business grow from a journal to a...
There are a lot of cool CGI creatures in Harry Potter. Then there are some creatures that don't look that great. The giants are unfortunately some of the most disappointing creatures, especially the scenes with Brock. Something about the animations just never looked real. Some of the concept art looked much more interesting. The look was something like a caveman Geralt of Rivia. Neither worked quite as well as the giants from Game of Thrones did. But at least Harry Potter managed to stick the ending. It's kind of surprising that the designers didn't make it work for the giants. They created some of the most iconic creatures in movie monster history. Tell me you aren't still terrified that basilisk is real. So it seems strange that one of the creatures that tripped them up was just a giant version of a person. Could they not have just called the Rock? Looking back on it, could any other actress have ever played Bellatrix Lestrange?
How do I look?
Helena Bonham Carter is perfect as Voldemort's psycho second in command, and maybe girlfriend. She's basically the Harley Quinn to his Joker. She definitely needs a Birds of Prey style solo movie too. If you think that Voldemort and Bellatrix are just creepy friends, I have some bad news for you. You see, there was this little play called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. In it, we find out about this chick named Delphine, who's actually Voldemort and Bellatrix's daughter. So, yeah, just take a second to absorb all of the horrifying implications there. That pitch you feel in your stomach right now? That never goes away. But back to Bellatrix. A lot of the movie character's style and personality comes from Carter's charismatically crazy performance. The book Bellatrix was plenty mad, but didn't have quite as much style. She was your standard, dark-haired femme fatale who was a lot more concerned with her superior blood status. Some of the concept art even has her looking a
Let's have a smoke.
True. Okay, so there's nothing in this world more terrifying than Dementors. They're floating monsters.
Hey, my dark darlings. Let's talk guilty pleasures. If a song hits right, I'll put that bad boy on repeat for like an hour. I also love rewatching our videos. Watching myself in something is such a guilty pleasure. A pleasure that's not guilty is how much I enjoy playing Best Fiends. It's a lovely mental palate cleanser between recordings, and their Match 3 puzzle game has new content and thousands of levels. With over 100 million downloads.
No one cares about your shit. So just fuck off.
La Siguanaba. They say the heart wants what the heart wants. However, that shouldn't be an excuse to betray those you love, because it often leads to dangerous consequences. It was Valentine's Day, which meant it was time for the Guatemala City Paper Company's annual employee party. Alejandro had missed last year's party, so when it got late, instead of heading home to his wife and family, he headed to the bar to get himself another drink. There, he saw the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She also seemed so familiar, but he couldn't remember how or why. "I'm Mariana," she said as her eyes glimmered. Alejandro couldn't believe his luck. He introduced himself, asking if she worked there. "No, a friend invited me," she said as she looked at Alejandro's
You
wedding
may
ring.
not believe
They
me,
said
but that's
this was the
okay.
place to be.
I reckon my
She grabbed the
destiny
drink
is
out of
to
his hand
destroy
and
all
began
worlds,
drinking it, never
like the
breaking eye
Scarlet
contact.
King.
Alejandro felt his heart beating loudly. She made him feel like a single man again, and he realized that
I
tonight
hate
could be the good time he
The
wanted.
human race.
"Let's get out of
The
here."
human
She
race
murmured.
disgusts me.
As the two quietly left the party, Alejandro's phone buzzed with a message. He expected a
I
scolding
really
from
do
his wife, Eliza,
hate
but instead found
my
a picture
own
of his
race.
10-month-old daughter sleeping. She tuckered herself out, waiting for Papa to come home. Mariana chuckled. Filled with guilt, Alejandro looked
I
up
want
at
to
the gorgeous
destroy
woman and nodded.
the
He
world.
sighed, knowing this would be another night
And move
cut
on to
short
the
by
next.
his responsibilities. Unfaithful.
The next world I'm gonna go to is the SCP universe. Destroy the Scarlet King. He's fake. Well, the real destroyer of worlds.
Mariana smiled and said,
So if she
It's up
fuck
to
with
you.
me, I can just
"I'm sure Eliza will take
eliminate
good care of
her
her
out
while
of
we have
resistance.
fun." Alejandro did not remember giving his wife's name, but that wasn't important right now. Mariana was the kind of woman he deserved, he told himself. Just for one night at least. He led her to a deserted area along the riverbanks of the Rio Contreras, and Mariana suggested they go for a swim. She removed her clothes and waded into the water. Alejandro scrambled after her, reaching his hand out to caress her back. When she turned around, the beautiful woman melted away. Her face grew long and horse-like, and her eyes became a piercing red. Her hands were now bloody, razor-sharp hooves. Alejandro knew the legends. For centuries, the children of Central America have heard the haunting stories of La Siguanaba, a supernatural shapeshifter that roams the streets every night looking for prey.
Huh.
She hunts and punishes unfaithful partners, but he had never believed. Through his terror, he sputtered, "It can't be. You can't be." Her voice grew coarse and growled. "Say my name." He shuddered, refusing at first to admit it to himself. Then he gave in. "La Siguanaba," he cried. "You are the dreaded La Siguanaba." The now grotesque nightmare spoke. "I have been waiting a long time to meet you, Alejandro." He stammered and begged. "Please, I have a wife and a daughter, a baby." "If they truly matter to you, then you would not be here at my mercy," La Siguanaba bellowed and then added, "But do not worry about them. I will care for what you have cast aside." Alejandro screamed as the shadow of La Siguanaba fell upon him. That morning, Alejandro's wife, Eliza, was visited by La Siguanaba, now back in the human form of Mariana. The supernatural shapeshifter hugged Eliza tightly as she caressed her hair and then kissed the baby on the forehead and said, "You were right, my sweet Eliza. He wasn't worthy of you. I'll be here as long as you need me." Hey, my dark darlings. Let's talk guilty pleasures. If a song hits right, I'll put that bad boy on repeat for like an hour. Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B is like that for me. I also love
Fuck off,
rewatching our
you
videos,
stupid ass
like our
dickhead.
pet horror.
I don't know why humans have
love
ads.
it.
Zoom says its numbers of users has ballooned from about 10 million to hundreds of millions.
Governments are trying to keep up, and older generations are concerned.
Alright, I have a question. Yes, what about Africa? Are we going to learn about Africa in this class?
The game has new rules.
The internet brings out base instincts in people.
Party's just started! You want me to come to Cape High School, huh?
What? Anyone else?
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late.
The game has new rules, and the leader, Joseph Kony.
This video is sponsored by LeakCheck.net. Check and see if your passwords are floating around online by visiting LeakCheck.net.
Ringcheck.net.
Miss Alder.
Check.net.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Alder. That's what you gotta decide.
I got
how
people
many
IP
letters
address now.
that you want each individual to send. You're sending them
An email address,
all the letters
everything
to
pretty
send to that
much.
department. But you gotta figure out how many letters that you want
So
to do.
yeah, I'm not gonna show you them. Only if these people fuck with me again.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late.
Those people's assholes.
Who was that you let in? Who was that on stage?
I have to make sure. Is my mic working?
Things you study, stuff like that to help you out. But this will be our time, one-on-one, guaranteed every single week. Okay, so at 11 o'clock. So it gives us plenty of time to sleep in. So I'm enjoying that too. Gosh, I'm having to be at school at 7. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. If we need to, we can be outside of this, sir. I'm more than happy to do that with you guys. But it'd have to be outside the 10 to 12 block area. And I think that's pretty much it. You guys have any questions about this?
Yes, I have a question. When is the next meeting?
The next meeting will be at for this class next Wednesday at 11 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Curvedy test.
Means I took it out of the,
Need a different passcode, or how would I get in? Evan, if you continue to laugh at me, there's going to be some problems. Do not laugh at me, boy. Evan, you are 15 years old, right?
No, I'm 15.
You want me to come to Cape High School, huh?
What?
You want me to come to Cape? You want to play with me?
I don't really know you.
Do you know who I am, huh?
No? Wait, Val, is this real?
Go ahead and continue to play with me. Go ahead and continue to laugh.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I'm going to come. When school comes in, I'm going to come to Cape High School and we will see what's so damn funny.
Listen, know me.
Apologize to me right now.
I'm not sorry, sir.
Okay, watch what is going to happen to you since you want to play with me. You're going to see. Don't let me pull up your information right here. Show to your doorstep since you want to play with me. Play games with me.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
It is too late for your apology. I want to see what's going to happen to you since you want to play with me. Think I am a joke?
No.
If I was you, I would try to leave your home right now. Go ahead and get a head start, my brother. You want to disrespect me? Go ahead, continue. Continue and see how well this will end for you. Are you taking a picture of me? Turn your camera off. Do not take any pictures. Someone's cat ran away. It was a gray cat, right?
What?
Whose cat ran away?
No one?
The voodoo spirits are telling me someone's cat ran away. This guy Evan wants to make fun.
Oh.
Who's this Daniel guy?
Daniel, say something.
Daniel, it is disrespectful not to speak to me. Unmute yourself and speak to me at once. I'm going to give Daniel another chance to speak to me.
I'm here.
You want to have the same fate as your friend Evan, huh?
See, Evan got out.
Yes, and if you want to get the same treatment, I will show up to your high school in Mariner, huh? Mariner High School, right?
Party's just starting.
You think your little airsoft gun is going to hurt me, brother?
Fake gun.
It's always fun to attempt.
Fake gun. They won't do anything to him.
We are playing with real bullets here, my brother. We don't play with that little BB bullshit.
That's
Well, see, try.
Alright, cool. I'm glad you have given me the invitation to your home. I will come for you next after I'm done with Evan.
What are you gonna do to Evan?
You will see.
I'll see. All I see.
You will soon see, my brother. Trust me.
What are you gonna do to him?
Yeah, buddy.
That was 72. What the fuck are you eating? We're about to go into war.
Listen, I'm being pet talk.
Oh, I see bodies. Oh my word, there's a lot of them. Are you sure about this? There's so many. I don't think they want to talk. Yeah, you guys are getting lit the fuck up.
I'm gonna penetrate the back.
Yeah, penetrate the back. I've heard you're really good with penetrating back.
Straight forward.
I'm making a maneuver inside. Cover me. Oh my fucking. I wasn't ready for this. You didn't say there was so many of them. This is.
I think you'll be TV. I just killed someone.
You killed who?
I just killed him.
What, the teammate?
Yeah.
You killed him. Oh my fucking god. How I knew. I think we're gonna have to retreat. You just killed our man.
Look him to his right. You can shoot him.
Oh shit. Oh god. Oh.
I got one.
Nice. Oh, fuck. Oh, I think I might have shot one. Hopefully. Is he down? I can't tell. Oh, he's going back out. God damn it. Oh! Hey, I don't think we did that well. I think they all are okay. Did we even fucking kill anybody? What kind of SWAT was this? Is it gonna go better this time?
I ate 2 more baguettes.
You did right.
Okay, you're going to
First round didn't go great, guys. I don't feel that confident about this one. Yeah. Here we go, boys. I'm ready. And for somebody's running up by the side of us. Oh, Frenchie's down! Oh, it's okay. That's fine. That's fine. I'm moving back up to the vehicle a little bit. Here we go, boys. Nice gas, bro! Nice fucking gas, Chief! Where you got that fucking forehand from? Fucking hell, nice one. Maybe you should put them down, you know. Did you have your spinach today? Kobe! This bad. Take cover, boys. I'm trying.
A smile or pulling a prank, there was no shortage of hijinks on the set of the Harry Potter films. No take was safe from the occasional giggle attack or prop failure. So let's look at the best of the best. The Binger knows you've been looking for yet another reason to go rewatch all the Harry Potter films. The entries we have in this video will change the way you see some scenes. Heck, it'll change the way you see the entire series. Trust us, you'll never look at one big bad villain the same way ever again. Bless Alan Rickman. He was in a class all to himself. Being the professional he is, you'd think silly pranks would be beneath him. On the contrary, he was more than happy to help bring some levity on set. In this case, levity means a fart machine. Yes, you heard that right. Rickman and Michael Gambon used the take during the third movie to goof off. Rickman got the crew to hide the fart machine in Radcliffe's sleeping bag during the Great Hall sleeping scene. As Gambon went through his monologue, the device would casually interrupt him. The best part is Gambon stayed in character, and so did Radcliffe. It wasn't until every other child on set couldn't hold it together that they broke too. So, how does this blooper make the movies better? Well, for starters, it changes the way you see that scene. You'll never watch it the same again. You'll just be thinking of Putin Potter. Additionally, it really endears Rickman and Gambon to the viewer. Here are the adults on set, showing the kids it's okay to have a laugh every once in a while. That's precious. Bras can be tricky. Ask any teenager. They're tricky to figure out when you first deal with one. Now, picture this. You're Daniel Radcliffe playing Harry Potter. Only, you're not Harry Potter. You're Fleur Delacour. You've got to take off a bra and change into some of Harry Potter's clothes. Turns out, this was a big challenge for him on set. To be fair, it wasn't Radcliffe's fault. He was shown how to take it off, and he even replicated Fleur's movements, so it seems like her. He simply got in his own head, and the bra was being troublesome. Regardless, it's funny watching him stand there in the middle of set, telling David Yates the bra isn't coming off. The blooper shows the attention to detail these actors work with daily. It could have just been as easy to skip the scene and move on, but it was a chance to show the magic of the wizarding world. Think back to the first time you saw this moment on film. You really believe it was all those people turning into Harry Potter. It's trouble to get that magic just right. Pick a Ron Weasley scene. Any Ron Weasley scene. We guarantee you it took multiple takes to complete. How do we know this? Because Rupert Grint was notoriously bad at keeping it together on set. The guy couldn't stop grinning. But honestly, we love him for it. It got so bad that the crew had to find ways to get him to stop. Alan Rickman told him during the first movie to relax his face and think of nothing. It didn't work at all. Grint must have been thinking about Hans Gruber instead. Yates and company tried a different approach to keep the film on schedule. They pulled out red cards on anyone giggling too much during a scene. It was a soft way of reminding the actors they needed to be professional on set. One of our favorite parts of any Rupert giggle fit is the director's reactions. Every time, they need to remind him that something serious happened. It's hilarious hearing an off-screen voice shout, "Rupert, you just learned the snake might have killed a student. Don't smile at the end." Chris Columbus has worked with plenty of child actors. His work on Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire is evidence enough of that fact. Still, even years of experience don't work in your favor all the time. Child actors are always tough to get genuine reactions out of, any time of the day. In the first movie, Columbus wanted a young Radcliffe to be shocked at the Goblin and Gringotts. He told actor Warwick Davis to help him out. Davis was supposed to shout his lines at the young child in hopes of making him jump. If the blooper proves anything, it's that Harry Potter isn't scared of no goblin. Davis did what he was told to, and Daniel Radcliffe, well, he simply laughed it off. Yeah, it's safe to say that the director was okay with taking a big L on that scene, which is okay. The whole moment is fantastic enough, but we didn't need the extra shock. It's fun to go back and watch them try, though, and see how far the young actors have come since then. Watching Harry's Yule Ball scene is like watching Ricky Bobby do an interview for the first time. Dancing as a teenager is awkward, especially when all eyes are on you. The cringe is thick during Harry's nervous pacing around the dance floor. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it shows. Well, it turns out it was all a ruse. Harry Potter may not know how to dance, but the actor playing him does. It was absolute torture for Radcliffe to get this scene right. He needed to pretend to be bad at dancing and more than a bit awkward. Imagine trying to pretend you're bad at writing with your left hand when you're actually left-handed. That's what this was like for him. Radcliffe kept taking the lead too quickly or showing a bit too much confidence in his steps. Imagine if they decided to go with that idea instead. The entire scene changes and Harry is left feeling like he did well. It shows dedication to keep trying until you fail. That's a whole different accomplishment. Hagrid is one of a kind. In the books, he's a special friend to the trio of misfits that occupy the story. He's even more to them in the movies. The relationship is transformed into a full-fledged partnership. Hagrid is always getting Ron, Harry, and Hermione out of trouble, and vice versa. Seeing the way they look at each other just adds some additional spark we can't put our finger on. Getting chemistry like that on set is never easy. When it happens, it's like striking gold. From day one, the child actors took a liking to Robbie Coltrane. A big part of that was his demeanor on set. You can see in all of Hagrid's bloopers that Coltrane is the smile everyone needs on a long day. Props to the casting director, because he's everything we'd want Hagrid to be on and off of camera. After all, it's not easy being the main characters with lines galore and all the pressure. Coltrane was able to come in and take some weight off them. He reminded everyone why they go to work every day and helped bring calmness into every scene.
Sustainability is a conversation.
Fuck off,
How fast fashion brands.
Well, there was no shortage of great actors on the set of these movies. We've talked about so many during this video, but we've left out one of the best. Yes, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the excellent Maggie Smith, especially given her life off the screen and the challenges she overcame. Smith managed to come into work and to get things done. She was the exact opposite of Rupert Grint. She hardly ever broke character and was known to keep a straight face in almost every take. That shows her losing it for a quick laugh. You'll never guess who causes it either. In Harry Potter, the exact opposite of Professor McGonagall is Professor Umbridge. The two battle constantly in Order of the Phoenix, since their belief systems are on opposite ends of the spectrum, which makes it shocking to think that Imelda Staunton as Dolores Umbridge was the one to break Maggie Smith. It's probably the first and only time a Umbridge line has ever made any smile or giggle. We've all heard the story. Chris Columbus tasked Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, and Rupert Grint with writing an essay about their characters. Each one of them responded to the homework precisely as their character would. People say it's classic Hermione for Watson to write such an extended essay. Well, boy, do we have a story for you. During the first film, Emma Watson was a dutiful actor determined to memorize all her lines. She was so dedicated to the task that she even managed to learn other characters' lines. Yep, Emma Watson knew Hermione Granger's lines and Ron Weasley's lines and Harry Potter's lines. She basically knew the whole script. It was impressive, but it led to some bloopers on set. See, as a nervous habit, Watson would mouth the words to the other characters' lines to make sure she hit her mark. They kept having to reshoot scenes because Watson was literally mouthing along with Radcliffe. It's honestly adorable when you consider it, and a total Hermione Granger move. So, we just spoke the praises of Emma Watson for a bit, but now it's time to admit she did have a weakness. At least, she got the Rupert curse for a hot second during the final film. It wasn't a consistent thing, but she got the giggles for a few scenes. One such moment was the tea scene with Mr. Lovegood. The constant slurping by the character was too much for poor Emma. She couldn't hold it together consistently, and Yates had to red card her for it. It was a shocking moment for all involved. Everyone thought for sure Rupert would be the one to giggle at it, which we're sure he did at some point, but just not to the degree Emma did. Still, the two joined together in one big giggle fit that'll warm any viewer's heart. The big moment was upon them. Ron and Hermione were about to kiss for the first time. To get through the moment, both Grint and Watson laughed their way through it. It was the perfect example of why the relationship worked on screen. Well, we talked about the wonderful chemistry between Rupert Grint and Emma Watson, but we can't leave out Daniel Radcliffe. Most of the bloopers between Ron and Harry just involve Grint making Radcliffe crack. It's the scenes between Radcliffe and Watson that tend to be a bit more touching. Trust us, this entry will make you smile. There are tons of moments in the later movies where Hermione gets so frustrated that she lovingly smacks Harry. It's nothing serious, more like when Fred flicks Scooby on the nose. The only trouble is, it's hard to hit softly on every take. Something Daniel Radcliffe found out the hard way. Emma Watson would roll up the paper and smack him on the head quickly. Except this time, it was a bit too hard. Radcliffe commented on the toughness of the swinging character, and Watson, as Hermione, laughed and gave him a hug. It would have been nice to include this in the actual movie. It happened in multiple scenes. Anytime Hermione hits Harry, assume there's a take where Watson apologizes and hugs Radcliffe. It's sorta cute, actually. Well, hopefully you've got plenty of reasons to revisit the series. The Binger is always